Let's continue with the scope mount by working on some of these pieces right up front here. So let me go back to my side orthographic view, and I'm thinking about this cylinder here, the piece between the two extrusions, as well as maybe these pieces up here. So if I look at this image right here, it looks like there is a cylindrical piece here. This part here has a spring on it. I don't think I'm going to do that because it also looks like it has some sort of a lever, which is this part here. I'll click there to add a cylinder to the 3D cursor right there. We can probably take the cylinder down to maybe 12 sides and put the cap fill to triangle fan. And now I'll scale it down and put that in place. I'll bring it over into the center here and scale it out in the X. Something like that. Now that we have that in place, let's work on this piece here, right here. I'll tumble around to look at this, and let's go ahead and put the origin in the center of the geometry here. Then I'll move the cursor to the selected geometry with Shift S, and then I'll add another cylinder on top of that. And this one looks like it could only be, let's say, 6 sides. It looks like it could be fairly blocky. And let's rotate it around the Y and scale this down and put it in here. I'll rotate it around the X by pressing R and X. Kind of turn that just a bit, scale it out in the X, and maybe put that there. Now for this piece over here, I'll go ahead and take this and duplicate it with Shift D, and then I'll hit the X key and slide it over a bit. Let's scale that down in the X. And what I'll do is I'll rotate it back just a bit in the X, and I will extrude this face right here up so it looks kind of like this. Now once again, this is kind of a perspective view. We're seeing more the top of this than we would in an orthographic view, but let's give it a try. I'll just extrude this straight up and kind of put it in place over here. Something like this. I'll grab these points and maybe move them up a bit. Like this. Now I should be able to grab this edge here and just move that out a little bit. And I'll grab this edge here and move this out a little bit like that. And then we can maybe smooth these pieces. I'll add a subdivision surface modifier and smooth it. And then I'll add a few edge loops to hold those edges so they don't collapse quite as much. And we should probably smooth this piece as well. This can stay kind of blocky, I think, but this piece should probably be smoothed. I think it looks like that this piece here can be seen here. So we should be able to create this as well. So let's try that. I will move the cursor here, create another cube, scale it down, and put it in place. Now for this, it looks like it's 2 extrusions here off of this main cube right here. So I'll tumble around and let's add a few edge loops to do that. I'll add, say, 4 edge loops here. And then back in the side view, I'll add an edge loop right here. And that will allow us to have these faces right here be able to be extruded up so that we can get this piece right there. Now it looks like it curves a bit. Maybe I can grab these 2 edges and let's bevel those. But before we do, we should really make sure that our scale has been applied. So I'll go back to object mode, and you can see here that our scale is non-uniform. There are different values in the scale fields. Let's apply our scale by pressing Control A and then choosing Scale. And now you can see those are all 1s. Now that that's been done, our bevel will happen a little more evenly and more predictably. So to get to bevel, we can press Control E, or we can come in and press Control B right here. So I'll do that. I'll press Control B, and I'll hold the Shift key down and then drag the mouse out just a bit. And then over here in the bevel panel, I'll increase the number of segments to maybe 3. And now it looks like we've got a cylinder right here to put in there as well. So I'll put the cursor there, and let's add a cylinder here. I'll give it 12 sides again. A triangle fan is good. I'll rotate it in the Y, and then scale it down, put it into place, and also tumble around and scale it out so it fits right out here like that. Alright, so now that we have those, let's go ahead and smooth them and add some edge loops. I'll add a subdivision surface modifier, smooth it. Then let's work on this one here. We're going to need to add quite a few edge loops to get some nice curves or some nice edges on this one. So I think I will begin by maybe adding 3 here and scaling those out some. And I'll do the same over here. I'll want to add an edge loop down here, one up here. I think I'd like to tighten up the edges along here where these pieces come out of that main block. So I'll add an edge loop right here just to tighten those up a bit. Now because I put a bevel on these edges here and curved this particular face here is not a quad. In other words, it has more than 4 sides to it. And therefore, I can't get an edge loop through here to tighten up some of these edges. However, when you have an issue like that, what you can do is just select that whole multi-sided face and hit E and then scale in just a bit, and that will effectively add an edge loop around that face. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that for each of these to tighten up the corners here. Let's add one more piece here. Let's add this piece right back here. It looks like it's just a cube with the faces deleted off the top and the front and the back, and then the shaped and a solidify modifier should give it a little bit of thickness. Let's go ahead and work on that. So I'll add a cube, scale it down, and try and scale it so it fits this area right here. There we go. I'll grab this face and pull this down a bit. And now what I'll do is come in here and just remove these faces here. From here we can grab vertices, maybe move them into place like this. And what I'll do as well is grab this point and move it down back here some. And then I'll add an edge loop for each area I need to move up. So this should come up like this. I'll go ahead and pull this down just a little bit more. There we go. Now we have a piece that looks something like this. We can now go ahead and add a subdivision surface modifier to it. And let's see if we can add a few edge loops to get this into the shape that we want. So I'll add an edge loop back here. I'll add one over here. I might be able to take these edges or these vertices and move that around a bit just to get it a little bit closer to what we want. We could also insert an edge loop here and then grab these vertices here and move them around as well. Now that we've got that, let's add a solidify modifier to it. And maybe I'll go ahead and bring it out in a bit like this. I'll tab into object mode. I'll apply the solidify modifier. And then I'll add a few edges here like this to hold those edges there. And there we go. Well, in the next video, we can add a Boolean to this and begin to work a little bit more on these other pieces.